Mr. Alvin Brooks became one of Kansas City's first black police officers in the 50s, Brian. He became one of the city's first black elected officials and later a civil rights activist. We're talking with Mr. Brooks this morning, celebrating 88 years of joy, pain, victories, and defeats with the release of a new book called Binding Us Together. It's his autobiography.
Good morning, Mr. Alvin Brooks. How you feeling this morning?
Good morning to both of you. Doing great, thank you. Just said good morning, God, and thank you for another night and to see another day.
Oh, that's right. I started to wear my I Know Alvin Brooks t-shirt because whenever I wear it, people always say something to me.
I guess they say, I know him too.
Exactly. You're well known for what you've done in this city. Let's go back a couple of years to when you were a child. Did you see yourself living this life?
Never I did, and it's a few years beyond a couple of years, but it's been a great life. I've had my ups and downs as life has it, and many of those downs I had no control over. Some of them I did. You know, born to a teenage mother who was 13 when she got pregnant, was 14 when I was born in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and being raised by the Brookses who adopted me, and I didn't know I was adopted until I was 22 years old. My mother was an investigator, found me, and then later on found my biological father. Came to Kansas City after my adopted father killed a white man over a moonshine still, and my grandson was just saying yesterday, if my dad had not killed the white man with the still, we never would have gotten to Kansas City, because that's the reason why I had to leave Arkansas. I never would have met the love of my life, Carol Laverne Rich, who became Carol Laverne Brooks for 63 years. Even in my teenage years at Lincoln High School and Articos and Lincoln Junior College, which was the third floor of Lincoln High School, all black schools with all black teachers who taught us. But I tell you, our teachers knew that there was going to be a better day, not what it should be, but they tried to prepare us for what the future would be.
Mr. Brooks, my father would often talk about how in the 60s there were tanks coming down Indiana Avenue during the civil rights era. Can you paint a picture for Kansas Cityans who weren't alive at the time what that era actually looked like in our city?
Well, that was during the riot, but most of those tanks and all were on the plaza to protect the plaza from what they thought those who were rioting would be on the plaza. The riot in Kansas City started the morning of April 9th, 1968. And it started because the school district, the superintendent at the time, and others, Dr. Robert Wheeler and Dr. Elita Campbell and myself, we were the three who were at the meeting on Monday night, the 8th, saying don't open the schools. And they went against us, voted against us. Kansas City, Kansas said that they would open the schools, and we told them why. That the kids would certainly feel that they were slighted because they didn't get out to go to a memorial service or something. And so what happened was that, as we predicted, the kids walked out and marched to City Hall, over 1,000 plus, and then the tear gas started, and over at Holy Name Church, which is 23rd and Benton at the time, the priest there, Father Timothy Gibbons, had opened the church after John L. Fraser was the air personality there on KPRS. And he announced at the bullhorn there after I spoke on the steps of City Hall that they could go to Holy Name, which Holy Name held Teen Town every Friday and Saturday night. And kids could bowl. They had a bowling alley, had a little snack bar, they had jukebox and all of that. And the police went and threw tear gas in the basement of the church. And the late Bruce Watkins, who was then city councilman, and myself. And that evening is when it all broke out. One black man was killed at 19th and Vine, stealing liquor. That was on the 9th. On the 10th, 4 black men were killed at 30th and Prospect. And one, a 15-year-old son, Little McKinney Jr., was with his father. And then the 6th black man was killed at 37th and Floor, going through a barricade because of he and his family trying to get away from the shooting and all, and they killed him. No one was ever tried. The report that was made never said that the police had done any of this. They said they didn't know whether the National Guard who had been brought in or the police. But the tanks then came in with the National Guard, and of course they were mostly surrounding the plaza to keep anybody from going to the plaza, which meant that our community was the one that was burned up and lost stores, and then of course white flight really began. But to answer the question with regard to the tanks, that's where they were, on the plaza, protecting the plaza. A tumultuous week, a week when black-white relationships were wide, and they were never close together.
Well, it sounds like there's been issues with Kansas Cityans and the police for many years. You, as a former police officer and an elected official in our city, how can we talk to young people about respecting police and following the rule of law when these problems have been existing for decades now?
Well, I think that you have to at least send the message out. I think the thing that we as adults have to do is to continue work to make things different. Now I'm doing somewhat of a movement from my book to what I call an analysis of America's structural racist system as viewed and experienced by an 88-year-old black man 50 years later. And that's because back in 1970, when we first had Black History Month, I was with Miss Lucille Blifford at the Kansas City Call and talking about what would Black History Month mean. And now they went from Negro History Week after Carter G. Woodson in 1926 started it to Black History Month for the first time in 1970. And I think even though we've had those days and things are far from what they ought to be, I think we still have to be positive. We still have to be optimistic that the change is going to come. But who's involved in the change? It has to change. It has to be us. Of course, white America has a role to play in that because white Americans created the issue of racism and separation and unequal treatment in all areas, and they're going to have to be at the forefront to make those changes. We have to continue to talk about that. But at the same time, I think we tell our young people, you have to be a part of the change, not by getting angry and shooting other people, but particularly each other.
The new book from Mr. Alvin Brooks, Binding Us Together, is available now. It's an autobiography, stories over the past 88 years, and there's so many. Most of our listeners know you from your nightly messages on Hot 103 Jams from Ad Hoc Group Against Crime. How did that start?
Well, of course, I had known the founder of the KPRS, Skip Carter, and then later when he and Millie were married, and it was all AM then, and eventually they got licensed all to make it FM. But so that was back in the 1950s. I was a kid at that time, remember that. Now, in 1978, after the murder of 10 women, I convened a meeting in November of 1977 to deal with this because the black community thought that there was a serial killer around. These were 10 women of the evening who were killed just in a short period of time in the spring of 1977. In 1978, we teamed with KPRS, KPRT. At that time, we had from 6 a.m. on a Friday to 6 p.m. on Sunday, we had the airways, and we broadcasted live from the Midwest Multipurpose Center. And your colleagues, your predecessors, were all there during that day broadcasting live, and we raised $30,000 for a reward fund. Of those 10, I think we helped solve 7, and then other crimes. And so then after that, I went to Millie and said that, listen, I'd really like to form a partnership. And we did. And if you pick up my book, Binding Us Together, you'll read about it, starting on page 224, about the relationship that was developed between myself, the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime, and KPRS. From that time on, 1978, we've had a relationship and a live broadcast on the KPRT, the AM side, Voices Midtown and Beyond, and we're still doing that. So the relationship has been good. KPRS has really been a community radio, KPRS and KPRT, Carter Broadcast Group, and have done things for the community, from politics, for religion, to fighting crime and all those kind of things. And it's great. In fact, we had Michael Carter on last evening on a group that I convene every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. of black men, talking about the role that, and Michael Carter, for those that are listening, is also the CEO and president of Carter Broadcasting Group, and took that over in 1987 as a young man, about 26 or 27 years old. And I told his grandmother, Millie Carter, because Skip had passed away, I said, are you sure you want this young, cocky fella to take that over? Because he was, arrogant or whatever. But look what he brought it to today. With a large staff and always the Alvin Trial ratings keep Carter Broadcasting Group in number one, and that, which is great, and that's what it ought to be. But it's a community station. It's the oldest black-owned station in the country. and that says something, that they've stayed alive and fight for whatever's going on. The Carter Broadcasting Group, both AM and FM, has stayed alive.
We are so honored to have you on the show this morning. I treasure the picture that I took with you at Mayor Lucas's inauguration. You had on the purple vest and bow tie, so I proudly have it on my social media this morning. Inside of your book, Binding Us Together, 88 years of ups and downs, a life well lived. My book is on the way. I ordered it from Amazon, so I'm encouraging everybody listening right now to get a piece of Kansas City history in this book.
But now I might share with you. You can buy that book at the Black Archives of Mid-America down in 17 Terrace in Highland, and Dr. Carmela Williams will be more than happy in the little novelty shop that you can pick that up, or at Barnes and Noble or a rainy day. But I'd really encourage you to go to Black Archives in Mid-America, because that's a cultural mecca, that whole area, 1809, for the African Americans before integration.
That's where I'm going. Jermaine Reed tried to sell me a bootleg of your book, Mr. Brooks. I told him no. All right?
Yes.
Mr. Alvin Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. We appreciate you. Have a good one.
Listen, thank you, and you too. God bless.